The all in all. Boom, ladies and gentlemen. The Kybalion Hermetic Philosophy, Three Initiates, Chapter 7. While the all is in all, it is equally true that all is in the all. To him who truly understands this, him or her, hath come great knowledge. To those who truly understand this truth, that while the all is in all is also in the all. What does this mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time to dive deeper into some Wednesday wisdom and the wisdom of Hermetics and Hermetic philosophy coming to us from the Kybalion, and we are all the way up to Chapter 7 in this series so far. If you've missed any previous episodes, be sure to go back and check it out, because this has been a mind-expanding adventure, definitely worth going through again myself. I find myself going back to many of the previous adventures we've done, the Hermetica and the Corpus Hermeticum, and many others as well, just for reference, because this is something, as Hermes Trismegistus told us in the very beginning of the Hermetica, that a constant contemplation is the real way to get this. Let us read from the words of Hermes. In the prophecies of Hermes, he says, "A pure philosophy is a spiritual striving, through a constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God." And so, how do we come to attain this true knowledge and this pure philosophy? Well, as stated by Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest, for the Egyptian sage god Thoth, it is through a constant contemplation, a constant meditation, a constant ponderation, and a constant rumination, a thinking upon, so that we may come to attain knowledge of the things that are, or the nature of reality, the nature of ourselves, and the nature of God, or as being referenced in this work, the all. And so, let us jump in and do a little recap of what we did a couple weeks ago. We skipped last week. It was birthday week, so take some time off and have some fun, ladies and gentlemen. But the All in the All, Chapter 7, begins by saying, "How often have the majority of people heard repeated the statement that their deity, called by many names, was all in all? And how little that they have suspected the inner occult truth concealed by these carelessly uttered words. The commonly used expression is a survival of the ancient Hermetic maxim quoted above. As the Kybalion says, to him who truly understands this truth hath come great knowledge." And so, this being so, let us see if we can find this truth, the understanding of which means so much. In this statement of truth, this Hermetic maxim, is concealed one of the greatest philosophical, scientific, and religious truths. And they have given us, and we have given you, and I have given myself in the previous video, the Hermetic teaching regarding the mental nature of the universe, and throughout this entire series, that the universe is mental, held in the mind of the all. And this is the first principle of Hermetics, which is mentalism. The universe is mental, held within the mind of the all, of God. As the Kybalion says in the passage quoted a couple times already here, all is in the all. But note also the correlated statement that it is equally true that all is in the all. So let me say that again, because that can be confusing. God, or everything rather, is in God, but also at the same time, God is in everything. This is a paradox. How can this be possible? Well, this is what we're talking about in Chapter 7, the all in all. Just think of the time. You don't have to think about it. It is right here. It is right now, ladies and gentlemen. On love so strange, said you never know. On we are here. So, this apparently contradictory statement is reconcilable under the law of paradox. Man, the bees are going crazy outside. They must really like this weather. Hopefully, it's beautiful weather where you are, ladies and gentlemen. And if it's not beautiful weather, then hopefully it's beautiful regardless of the weather. I had a coworker that used to say that. It's very funny. He used to go, "Man, it's a beautiful day." And I was like, "It's snowing." He goes, "Oh, not the weather." I was like, "What?" Now, this paradox. And there's this thing that we have with the laws and the principles in Hermetics that we can use to reconcile paradoxes. Particularly, let me continue before I start rambling like I always do. It is moreover an exact Hermetic statement of the relations existing between God, or the All, and its mental universe. So, we have seen how God, or All, everything is in God. Now let us examine how God is in everything. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the All is immanent in, or God is immanent in, remaining within, inherent, abiding within its universe, and in every part, particle, unit, or combination within the universe. This statement is usually illustrated by the teachers by a reference to the principle of correspondence. The principle of correspondence has been very important for us. Let us go back and reference the principle of correspondence real quick. 7 Hermetic principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. So we learned about mentalism already, and this is what we're learning about a lot. The all is mind and the universe is mental. Everything exists within the mind of God. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter, and it's just an illusion, because for us it is very real, despite still existing as a thought within the mind of God. Now, the second principle is correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. The principle of correspondence embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and the various phenomenon on the various planes of being and life, which we have discovered before was the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. I just lost my spot, but we'll find it pretty easily. And so, using this law, the principle of correspondence, we can figure out paradoxes. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. And so we've talked about that a lot before already, and it will come up again here in just a moment. So let me continue now after that reference to correspondence, ladies and gentlemen. The teachers instruct the student to form a mental image. So this is a little example of how we can understand the mind of God and how we are within the mind of God. And so they will instruct the student to form a mental image of something, a person, an idea, something having a mental form. The favorite example being that of the author or the dramatist forming an idea of his characters in his story. So, in each case, the student will find that while the image has its existence and being solely within our mind as we are imagining it, our own mind, yet we, the student, the author, whatever it be, is also, in a sense, immanent in, remaining within, or abiding within the mental image also. So are we the character in our thoughts? Is the character in our thoughts us? This is the metaphor used for are we God? Is God us? In other words, the entire virtue, life, spirit of reality of the mental image is derived from the immanent mind. So the reality of the immanent image, the character, so to speak, comes from the mind of the thinker. Now, consider for a moment until the idea is grasped, because it's a deep one. But we've done this before on last week's episode, And continuing, this will explain more. So take, for example, let's say Othello, Iago, Hamlet, Lear, Richard III. They all existed merely in the mind of Shakespeare at the time of their conception or creation, and yet Shakespeare also existed within each of these characters because he is the creator. And so it was his, energy, it was his life or his creativity, you could say, that gave life to these characters. And so Shakespeare also existed within each of these characters, giving them their vitality, their spirit, their action. Whose is the spirit of the characters that we know as Oliver Twist, Uriah Heep? Is it Dickens, the author, or have each of these characters their own personal spirit independent of their creator? See, now this is a metaphor going back to us existing within the all existing within the all, and the all, God, existing within us all. And so, have the the characters spirits and reality of their own, or do they represent the spiritual and mental power of the author, of the creators? The law of paradox explains that both propositions are true, which is what you may have been thinking already, viewed from proper viewpoints. Micawber is both Micawber and yet also Charles Dickens, the author. And again, while the character may be said to be the author or the creator, yet the creator is not identical with the characters or the creations. And so, some characters, thinking this, may exclaim, "The spirit of my creator is inherent within me, and yet I am not he." How different this is from the shocking half-truth so vociferously announced by certain of the half-wise, who will fill the air with the raucous cries of, "I am God." See, there's this problem that's being discussed here, is that when you come to the knowledge that we are a part of God and God is within us, there could be this half understanding of, "Oh, I am God." Or you could have the opposite half understanding that, "Oh, nothing is real, and so none of it matters at all." And both of these would be, as it states, a half truth. And so it's important to not jump to conclusions too quickly. Imagine poor Micawber, the character, or the sneaky Uriah Heep, crying, "I am Charles Dickens." Or some of the lowly clods in one of Shakespeare's plays. I always think of like all the extras in the background. Grandiloquy announcing that "I am Shakespeare." The all is in the earthworm. God is in the earthworm, and yet an earthworm is very far from being God. And still, the wonder remains, though, that the earthworm exists merely as a lowly thing, created and having its being solely within the mind of God, and yet God is very immanent, abiding and inherent, remaining within all things, including the earthworm. And in the particles that go to make up the earthworm, can there be any greater mystery than this of all in the all and the all in all? Well, the student will, of course, realize that the illustrations given above and already, we're reading this for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that through an increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. I forgot to say that earlier at the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Purposes of teaching and commentary, entertainment, education, fun. Also some fun. So the student will, of course, realize that the illustrations we've been given already are necessarily imperfect and also inadequate, for they represent the creation of mental images in our minds. The example and metaphor we were using to try to understand this with the characters and the author and the creator and the life essence of the creator being within the characters, but the characters not exactly being the creator, but having some essence of said author or creator. But once again, these illustrations are imperfect, for they represent the creation of mental images in our finite minds. While the universe is a creation of infinite living mind, and the difference between the two poles separates them, and yet it is merely a matter of degree. The same principle is in operation. The principle of correspondence manifests in each, as we said, on the material plane and on the spiritual plane and mental plane, in between, as above, so below. So also the correspondence of how we can create mental images in our finite minds. There would be a correspondence as below, so above, and God creating mental images in the infinite mind. And in the degree that man realizes, back to the book here, quote, the existence of the indwelling spirit immanent within our own being, so will we rise in the spiritual scale of life. This is what spiritual development means. The recognition, the realization, and finally the manifestation of that immanent spirit, that divinity that is within each one of us, that we are all a part of. And now try to remember, it says, this last definition, that of spiritual development, because it contains the truth of true religion. And I like to switch the word religion for spiritual philosophy or spiritual pursuit, spiritual practice. Remember, a pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through a constant contemplation. You got it. Constant contemplation to attain what? True knowledge of Atum, the one God, or simply put in the Corpus Hermeticum, the nature of the things that are, or the nature of reality. There can be no religious pursuit more pure or just than to simply seek the knowledge of the things that are. Let me read this word for word here. Hermes Trismegistus, his first book. O my son, write this first book both for humanity's sake and for piety, reverence, and honor towards God. For there can be no religion, spiritual pursuit, spiritual philosophy, more true or just than to know the things that are, and then to acknowledge thanks for all things and to that which hath made them. And that is simply the purpose of life. That's all we're supposed to do while we're here. It's to acknowledge creation, appreciate it, and tend to it and keep it, and try to make it a little better as we also progress in our own personal journeys. But I seem to be going fast today, but I don't know. It's just how the vibe is, I guess. Thank you for being here. I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time with me. And in this case, what was it? William Walker Atkinson and the two that inspired him being the three initiates in Hermetic philosophy. Now, that last definition it wants us to remember of spiritual development. It is that, and in the degree that we realize the existence of God, or the indwelling spirit immanent within ourselves and in all things, to the degree that we realize this, so will we rise in the spiritual scale of life. This is what spiritual development means: the recognition, the realization, the manifestation of God, that spirit that we are all a part of, that is within all of us, the all in all, and all is in the all, as above, so below. There are many planes of being, the book continues, and many subplanes of life, many degrees of existence in the universe. So if you've ever wondered that, there's your answer. I mean, I can't say this is a definitive answer. Once again, I'm no master. You're probably smarter than I am if you're listening to this video, because you're interested in these topics. But I'm just here on this journey personally, and I would be doing this by myself, and it's a lot funner to share it with those who are like-minded and may appreciate my ramblings. And so we're learning together, and thank you for joining me on this journey, ladies and gentlemen. But there are many planes of being. There are many subplanes of life. Being and life being two different things. there are also many degrees of existence in the universe. So we have three categories there. We have being, we have life, and we have existence. And all, not God, but all of these things depend upon the advancement of beings in the scale, of which the lowest point is the grossest matter. So like the hardest material, densest form, and then upward, the highest being separated only by the thinnest division from the spirit of the all. And upward and onward along this scale of life, everything is moving. All of us are on the path, whose end is the all. All progress is a returning home. All is upward and onward, in spite of all seemingly contradictory appearances that we're so often confronted with here in the material plane. But, in spite of all these contradictory appearances, upward and onward we go. And such is the message of the illumined. The Hermetic teachings concerning the process of the mental creation of the universe are that at the beginning of the creative cycle. And so this is where we go into what we were really focusing on last week, the creation, how God creates reality. And so let's fly through this to get to where we have to get to today, and then we can finish the chapter. I'm going to try not to ramble too much so we can just stick to the material this time. We'll see if that's possible for me. All right. Hermetic teachings concerning the process of mental creation, the mental creation of the universe, are that at the beginning of the creative cycle, the all, in aspect of being, projects its will towards an aspect of becoming. So using the principle of correspondence, this process is also available to us when it comes to manifesting. And we just started our series yesterday, a new book, Manifest Your Destiny, the 9 Spiritual Principles for Manifesting, from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. So that's always a topic that comes up with this kind of study, ladies and gentlemen. Mental creation, because as we've learned, our most powerful tool is our minds, and our most, we'll leave it there. I'm rambling already again. See, I knew I couldn't do it. The process of creation begins. So we project our will towards this aspect of becoming, and the process of creation begins. It is taught that the process consists of the lowering of vibration until a very low degree of vibratory energy is reached, at which point the grossest possible form of matter is manifested. It's very interesting. It made me think of enlightenment stories and how kind of like the Buddha, to reach enlightenment, had to get to this very, I think he starved himself, and he got to this very low energy state. Like, he was almost out of it because of a lack of nourishment, I guess. But this seems to be something that has to do with a catalyst for triggering some kind of transcendental, some kind of enlightenment type of experience. Not recommended, but that was just what I thought of when it said the process consists of lowering of vibration until a very low degree of vibratory energy is reached, at which point the grossest possible form of matter is manifested. This process is called the stage of involution, in which the all, God, becomes involved or wrapped up, like when we're creating a story or a character in our mind, we're becoming involved and wrapped up in it, in its creation. This process is believed by the Hermeticists to have a correspondence to the mental process of, like I was just saying, an artist, a writer, an inventor, an author who becomes so wrapped up in their mental creation as to almost forget for a momentary their own existence, and who, for the time being almost lives in their creation or their story. If instead of wrapped, we use the word rapt, R-A-P-T, and we looked at the meaning of, rapture to be, but perhaps we will get a better idea of what is meant. This involuntary stage of creation is sometimes called the outpouring of divine energy, just as the evolutionary stage is called the indrawing. So you have the outpouring and the indrawing. We're talking about how God creates reality here, ladies and gentlemen. This is extremely deep, but I find it incredibly fascinating and somehow empowering. In the beginning of the evolutionary stage, it's regarded as the beginning of the return swing of the pendulum of rhythm, a coming home, quote unquote, idea being held in all of the Hermetic teachings. And so, the extreme pole of the creative process is considered to be the furthest removed from the all. The teachings that are during the outpouring, the vibrations become lower and lower, and finally, the urge ceases and the return swing begins. But there is this difference that while the outpouring, the creative forces manifest compactly and as a whole, and yet from the beginning of the evolutionary or indrawing stage, there is manifested the law of individualization. That is, the tendency to separate into units of force, so that finally that which left the all as unindividualized, as a oneness, returns to source, returns to all. So as we come out of God into the physical plane, from the spiritual plane and the mental plane, through this process of creation and manifestation of from the mind of God to manifest reality, still all existing within the mind of God. It's like if you were thinking of a character walking down a street in a city, and there's cars going by and people walking around, there's restaurants and businesses and stuff, and this is all going on within your mind. That image in your mind is not real. If you were in that image, you wouldn't know that it wasn't real because you would be there and it would be very real for you. And while the image is held within the mind of the thinker, it is very real. And actually, the thinker is a part of the image as well. So this is what's being described here about how God creates reality through this thinking process, using the principle of correspondence to understand for us how it works, as above, so below, and so below, as above. Now, so it's talking about that oneness. So when we think of the character walking down the street with the businesses and the cars and all, this reality in our minds it comes into being as a oneness, but during its existence, it has the tendency to separate into units of force, so that finally that which left or was created as oneness returns to source as countless highly developed units of life, having risen higher in the scale by means of physical, mental, and spiritual evolution. So if we could hold this thought of this story in our heads for a lifetime, the characters in this story would develop and grow, and they would rise higher and higher in the scale by means of physical, mental, and spiritual evolution. We are doing that in our very own journeys here within the mind of God. The ancient Hermeticists used the word meditation in describing the process of the mental creation of the universe in the mind of the all. Now, see, this is very funny because this is exactly what Dr. Wayne Dyer is talking about, using The japa, the sound of creation, a meditation to focus on this exact process, which is being described here in Hermetic philosophy. So it's all related, ladies and gentlemen. There's nowhere in any of Wayne Dyer's works, well, maybe one of his works somewhere, but not that I remember. And I've been, he's my mentor, although I never got the chance to meet him. But I've been deep in Wayne Dyer's work for quite a few years now, and he's not saying, oh, yeah, I got this from Hermetic philosophy, the ancient esoteric occult traditions of Greece and Egypt, but it's all the same understanding. I mean, this wisdom of the ages is it's one of those infinite truths, underlying realities. It's kind of like how thought transcends language. Like, yeah, we have all these different languages, but we're all saying the same thing with thoughts. We just have to use weird different sounds to try to say the same thing. I don't know why that this universal truth that is part of the great wisdom of the ages is there, and it transcends language. It exists beyond words. Because, as I said in yesterday's video, one of my favorite teachings is the truth always wins. It just takes time to breathe, whether it be moments, months, years, centuries, eons. The truth will make itself known and apparent. Now, the word contemplation also being frequently employed, but the idea intended seems to be that of the employment of divine attention. Attention is a word derived from the Latin root meaning to reach out or to stretch out. And so the act of attention is really a mental reaching out or an extension, a connection, maybe you could say, of mental energy so that the underlying idea is readily understood when we examine into the real meaning of attention. The Hermetic teachings regarding the process of evolution are that God, the All, having meditated upon the beginning of the creation, having thus established the mental foundations of the universe, having thought it into existence, and then gradually awakens and rouses from its meditation, and in doing so starts into manifestation the process of evolution on the material, mental, and spiritual planes successively and in order. Thus, the upward movement begins, and all begins to move spiritward. Matter becomes less gross, less thick and dense, I think is what it's meaning by gross, not like, ew, gross. Could also be both. Matter becomes less disgusting and ridiculous and stupid, and it begins to learn and grow, but it also becomes lighter and more spiritual. The units, it says, we finally, ladies and gentlemen, caught up to our bookmark. The units spring into being, the combinations begin to form. Life appears and manifests in higher and higher forms. And mind becomes more and more in evidence, the vibrations constantly becoming higher. In short, the entire process of evolution in all of its phases begins and proceeds according to the established laws of the indrawing process. All of this occupies aeons upon aeons of man's time, and each aeon containing countless millions of years. But yet the illumined, the enlightened, inform us that the entire creation, like all of existence of reality in the universe, including involution and evolution of an universe, it says, not a universe, is but as a twinkling of the eye to God. So all of time, all of the existence of everything forever is but a mere split second for God. And so for us to sit here and judge, why do bad things happen to good people? And why does this happen that way? And this shouldn't be the way it is. And from our finite, little individualized, human, limited perspective, it would be silly to think that we should know how things should work in the grand scheme of all of the aeons of time, which would be but a mere second, witnessing it from the perspective of God or the All, the Tao, grand organized design, universal intelligence, great spirit, whatever you want to call it, it is all names. So the name is irrelevant. Now, at the end of countless cycles of aeons of time, the All withdraws its attention, its contemplation and meditation of the universe, for the great work is finished. And all is withdrawn into the All. So everything that was created is withdrawn into God, from which it came from. But mystery of mysteries, the spirit of each soul is not annihilated. So it's not like all these things that come back and it's just destroyed. Okay, it's just back to God now. It's not annihilated, but it is infinitely expanded. So if you're worried, don't worry. You're going to be infinitely expanded. I should have my Hitchhiker's Guide lanyard. Don't panic. Now, draws its attention, the meditation of the universe, the great work is finished. The spirit of each soul is not annihilated, but infinitely expanded. The created and the creator are merged, such as the report we get from the Illumined, the ancient masters and mystic sages. The above illustration of the quote-unquote meditation and subsequent awakening from the meditation of God is of course but an attempt of the teachers to describe the infinite process by a finite example. So we're trying to describe something that is infinite by an example of finite, using the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. And yet, the difference of these two, as we have learned, is merely a matter of degree. And just as the all arouses itself from the meditation upon the universe, so does man in time cease from manifesting upon the material plane and withdraws ourselves, himself, herself, more and more into the indwelling spirit, which is indeed the divine ego. I've learned a lot about the ego and how it plays a role in our, our lives here. There's a spirit part of us and the ego part of us, and I've never heard about the divine ego. I have learned that the ego makes an excellent servant, but a terrible master. This is one more matter. There is actually one more matter, the book says, of which we desire to speak of in this lesson, the all within the all. And this is chapter 7. If you joined us a little after the intro in the beginning, chapter 7 in the Kybalion, the all in all, speaking of what we've been talking about this whole time. And so, reading for purposes of teaching and commentary, once again, expanding the mind, so that through an increased awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves and reality and spirituality, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives. So, I say so a lot. I used to say ladies and gentlemen like 150 times. At least I don't do that as much as I used to. But once again, it's all for fun, ladies and gentlemen. Gotcha. But once again, this correspondence is as above, so below. This is us here, finite, physical world, trying to describe something that is an infinite process. So just as the all arouses itself from a meditation, so do we cease from manifesting on the material plane and withdraw ourselves more and more into the indwelling spirit, which is indeed the divine ego, rather than the normal ego. But this one more matter that they wish to speak of in this lesson, and that comes very near to an invasion of the metaphysical field of speculation. Wow. Like, what are you trying to say with all that? Although our purpose is merely to show the futility of such speculation. So let's see what they're trying to say here. They confused me. We allude to the question which inevitably comes to the mind of all thinkers who have ventured to seek this truth and the truth. The question is, why does the all, God, create universes? Or the whatever, multiverse, universes. Why does God even do this? It's funny that they asked that because I have never asked that question. I figured there was a great purpose that would be far beyond my understanding, and I would have to get outside of time and space to actually even begin to grasp this great purpose. But in case you have asked this question, we're going to cover it here. Why does the all create universes? The question may be asked in many different forms, but the above is the gist of the inquiry. Humanity, men and women, have striven hard to answer this question. But still, there is no answer worthy of the name. Some have imagined that the all, that God, has something to gain by it. But this is absurd, for what could the all gain that it did not already possess? See, this idea that, like, if you were God and you could control everything, like there was a show, I gotta remember, it's like the best. Of course, The Twilight Zone. How could I forget that? But there was this episode of The Twilight Zone where this guy, he's in this casino and he finds out that everything is going exactly as he would want it to go. It's like, here, you could do whatever you want to do. Oh, you always want to win? Okay, you're going to win every time. You want to have all this stuff and you just have that. And he started getting bored. He's like, well, I think I want to lose every now and then because, I don't just always want to win, that it's not exciting. And eventually you get to this point where you get back to normal reality and you're like, man, I don't really want to control everything all the time because then there's nothing unexpected and zero adventure and excitement. And so this is an idea of why God creates reality this way is so that he can experience some, randomness, some excitement, some adventure, and also through this process of us learning and growing our own selves makes me think of the Hitchhiker's Guide and trying to get the ultimate answer, which is 42, but they had the wrong question. But they were trying to find the answer, the meaning to life, the universe, and everything. And the great computer that these, what were they, immortal beings that could live forever or very long times after thousands and thousands of years of this computer contemplating, great mind to figure out the answer of the life, the universe, and everything. Rambling here, but it's all connected, like I said earlier. Hopefully you're getting value. But the answer was 42, and the great computer said, well, we're going to need a better question. And everyone was like, oh, what's the question? And so you find out at the end, spoiler alert, that here, what we're doing now here, is an attempt to find that question. Rather than the answer, we are an attempt, a giant computer, you could call it, or whatever. We are an attempt to find that question, not the answer. So why does God create the universes? Is it because he's bored? Or is it because we are trying to, God is trying to evolve itself through this process of our own evolution, spiritual evolution? Well, the Kybalion would tell us this, that we have striven hard for eons, time immemorial, to answer this question, but still there is no worthy answer. Some have imagined that God had something to gain by creating reality. But this is absurd, for what could the all, that is everything already, gain? that it did not already possess. Others have sought the answer in the idea that the all wished something to love, and others that it created for pleasure or amusement or because God was quote unquote lonely, or to manifest its power. All puerile explanations and ideas belonging to the childish period of thought. See, I mean, it all seems reasonable when you're looking at God from the perspective of an anthropomorphized being, or looking at God as like a person having human characteristics and traits like loneliness and love or boredom or a want to have authority or dominance and show power, or none of these are characteristics of God. Although these are creations of God as part of our existence within the mental image or within the mind of God. But just as we spoke about earlier, the characters, although being God, are not God. Like the earthworm, although God is inherently within and abiding within, always within the earthworm, it doesn't mean that the earthworm is all. It is within all. This is why we're going through this, because this is paradoxical, complicated, confusing. It's deep. Remember, the lesson from Hermes, from Thoth, the Egyptian sage god, is that the way that we can get this is through a constant contemplation. You have to really think about it a lot, all of the time. Meditating, that doesn't mean don't go live your life. I mean, chop wood and carry water and then become enlightened and continue chopping wood and carrying water. But if we're going to get this, a spiritual striving is through a constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of the all. And that's what we're trying to do here. And so that we can help ourselves in our own life to have a little bit more, you know, I don't know. Well, how would you describe that? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you for being here. Hopefully it hasn't been an entire hour already. I've been trying to go fast, but we only got 2 more pages, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll be to chapter 8, the planes of correspondence. Now, we're asking the question, why does God create reality? And others have sought to explain the mystery of assuming that God found itself compelled to create by reason of its own internal nature or its creative instincts, kind of how we are, as above, so below. Once again, this idea is in advance of the previous mentioned, but it is weak. But its weak point lies in the idea of the all being compelled by anything, internal or external, of itself. If God's internal nature or creative instinct compelled it to do anything, then the internal nature or a creative instinct would be the absolute instead of the all. And so accordingly, that part of the proposition fails, because then there once again would be something separate, which, as we've learned, is not possible. And yet the all does create and manifest, and seems to find some kind of satisfaction in so doing. I don't know. I would debate that part about the satisfaction. Maybe. I mean, we find satisfaction sometimes in creating mental images in our minds. As above, so below. As below, so above, and seems to find it is difficult to escape the conclusion that in some degree it must have what would correspond to an inner nature or a creative instinct in man with correspondingly infinite desire and will. It could not act unless it willed to act, and it would not will to act unless it desired to act. And it would not desire to act unless it obtained some satisfaction thereby. And all of these things would belong to an inner nature and might be postulated as existing according to the law of correspondence. But still, see, that's what I was saying. But still, we prefer to think of the all as acting entirely free from any influence, internal as well as external. That is the problem which lies at the root of difficulty, and the difficulty that lies at the root of the problem. See what they did there? I see what you did there. That is the problem which lies at the root of the difficulty, and the difficulty that lies at the root of the problem. Strictly speaking, there cannot be said to be any reason whatsoever for the all to act, for a reason implies a cause, and the all is above cause and effect, which we learned about when we have gone over the laws and the principles of Hermetics in the Hermetica, the Corpus Hermeticum, and so far in the Kybalion. Yeah, there's been quite a few people that commented on this series saying this isn't Hermetic philosophy. This is just a bunch of New Age oneness, wishy-washy talk. I find after reading the Corpus Hermeticum and the Hermetica in sequence and then going to this directly after those, reading through all of it, doing videos like this, that there is very much a ton of correlations between what is taught in those and what is taught in this. So, I don't know. I guess I like the New Age oneness, wishy-washy stuff. But there's so many correlate. I mean, anyways, some people get too, trying to compartmentalize too many things. It's all connected. It's all. Just as the all is unknowable, just as we say the all merely is, so are we compelled to say that the all acts because it acts. The all is all reason in itself, all law in itself, and all action in itself. And it may be said truthfully that God, or the all, is its own reason, its own law, its own act, or still further, that the all, its reason, its acts, its law are one, all being names for the same thing. In the opinion of those who are given you these present lessons, the answer is locked up in an inner self of God, along with its secret of being. The law of correspondence, in our own opinion, reaches only to that aspect of the all, which may be spoken of as, quote unquote, the aspect of becoming. Back of that aspect is the aspect of being, in which all laws are lost in law, all principles merge into principle. Starting to get it. And the all, principle and being, are identical, one and the same. So, like, because we're so used to separateness, like I am this and this is that, and we are not the same, even though we are all here, a part of one thing, one system. We look at things like laws as a bunch of separate things. But in this infinite view, or this ultimate God view, laws, the separate things, remember, become law. So, like, there's wood, and then there's tables and chairs, and all the things that are made out of wood, but there is wood. And then there is tables, and there's all the different kinds of tables. You got short ones, tall ones, long ones, square ones, but all these are table. Tables, multiplicity is off of one idea. So what it's saying here is in back of this aspect of becoming of God, the aspect of being, in which all laws separate are lost in law. All principles merge into principle. And the all, principle and being, are identical, one and the same. Therefore, thank you for sticking with me, because whoosh, this is heavy and this is a lot. Remember, constant contemplation. Metaphysical speculation on this point is futile. So never mind, don't even think about it. We go into the matter here merely just to show that we recognize the question and also the absurdity of the ordinary answers of the metaphysics and theology in an attempt to answer this question. In conclusion, it may be of interest to our students to learn that while some of the ancient and modern Hermetic teachers have rather inclined in the direction of applying the principle of correspondence to this question, which is what we've done, with the result of the inner nature conclusion. Still, though, the legends have it that Hermes, the great, thrice greatest, when asked this question by his advanced students, answered them by pressing his lips tightly together and not saying a word, indicating possibly, I'm adding the word possibly there, that there was no answer. You may be asking yourself, because we've been going over this for a while, what was the question again? What answer are we talking about? Why does God create reality, universes? Like, simply why? And we've gone over a lot of that. This is amazing. Hermes, though, answered by pressing his lips tightly together, indicating that there was no answer. There isn't an answer why God creates the universe. This is probably why I personally never felt the question arise. I didn't really feel there needed to be an answer. I mean, this is reality. Who needs an answer for this? Wow, the places we go, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost there. Almost there, so just hang on. But then he may have intended to apply the axiom of his philosophy that the lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. Believing that even in his advanced students did not possess the understanding which entitled them to the teaching. At any rate, if Hermes possessed the secret, he failed to tell us. Dang it. Dang it, Hermes. Come on, man. Thoth. Tahat. Nah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for this wisdom. We probably wouldn't have got it if you left us the answer anyways. But, believing that even his advanced students did not possess the understanding which entitled them to the teaching, at any rate, if Hermes possessed the secret, he failed to impart it, and so far as the world is concerned, the lips of Hermes are closed regarding it. And where the great Hermes hesitated to speak, what mortal may dare to teach? But remember that wherever be the answer to this problem, if indeed there be an answer, the truth remains that while the all, God, is in all, it is equally true that all is in the all. The teaching on this point is emphatic, and we may add the concluding words of the quotation, to him or her who truly understands this truth hath come great knowledge. Hath come great knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, and that is a boom to Chapter 7, the all in all of the Kybalion Hermetic philosophy. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that was incredible. That was mind expanding. I will definitely be contemplating on that one for quite some time. I mean, that's one of those one I did a lot of rambling in the previous video. It's one of my best performing videos on this channel yet. But I extrapolated more on the first video. This one I was just trying to get through the entire chapter so we could have it in one video. But wow, ladies and gentlemen, take that. Take them apples. Take that for size. That was amazing. Whew. Constant contemplation. Pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through a constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God. And remember, he said, "O my son, write this first book both for humanity's sake and for reverence and honor. To God, to the All, to Atum." And so that we can hopefully attempt to attain the knowledge of the things that are. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. What is enlightenment? To me, it's a greater awareness and an understanding of the nature of reality, of ourselves, of spirituality. And so that through this increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives. Said that wrong. How does it normally go? Seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Through greater awareness, understanding, increases the quality of our lives. And remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. I just kind of made up this ending bumper like 3 years ago, and I just like it so much. I do it every time. It's a good reminder. But wisdom of the ages, the mysteries of our history. I really mean it. Like there's a lot of mysteries. There's a lot of stuff that I was talking to the Mormon guys who were going by the other day. They're always walking around here like, "Hey, can we talk to you for a minute?" I'm like, "Well, I've got 50 of your pamphlets. I get into we talk about some Hermetic philosophy. I was telling them about Thoth and the one God and Atum, and they're like, "Wow, this guy's really got some." So it's always funny. But once again, I'm getting off track. Remember to seek to discover the wisdom of the ages, the mysteries of our history, and also remember that there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. It is what we must create the ability through practice and effort. We must create the ability within ourselves to bring happiness to life. So happiness is the way rather than the way trying to find a way to, all the things we've been telling ourselves, when I get this and have that much and I'll finally be happy, that becomes irrelevant because then we are there. And hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right, expand the description below the video to get this book for yourself, this book for yourself, this book for yourself, so you can put it on your shelf and follow along in future episodes. Those are Amazon affiliate links, so I make a few cents from that. Every little bit appreciates to help the work. I used to say that we do here, but it's really just me doing either. I don't have a team. I don't have a team. It's just me. I'm the team. So support the work that I do here, or my team, which is and also a link to my landscape paintings and my Etsy shop, as well as a link to my Patreon. If we get some people over there, we'll start doing some separate things aside from the channel, whatever you like, and a link to C60 Power. Used to be Purple Power, the ultimate antioxidant known to man. Nobel Prize winning, give yourself the gift of health. 10% off in that link as well. All right, we'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time here with me and all the wonderful authors and poets, philosophers, mystics, and sages of the ages. Until next time, remember to be the change that you want to see and be the example that you want to set. No, 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 no. Thank you.